you're not just learning to write, but you're writing to learn.
Hello, fans of SRSD. My name is Randy Barth, and I'm from SRSD Online. And you're watching the SRSD Mentor Series, helping you change student lives forever. This episode is on process writing, and how SRSD not only fits seamlessly into Writing Workshop, but how research shows that when combining process writing with SRSD, the effect sizes are unprecedented. For our episode today, we have two SRSD experts with us on the phone. Please welcome Erin Fitzpatrick. Erin is an SRSD researcher and Literacy and Language Fellow at Georgia State University. And Sandra Jones. Sandy is a SRSD trainer and SRSD course curriculum developer. Erin, let's start with you. Can you tell us your perspective on process writing?
So process writing is taking it all the way from however it began with a prompt, all the way through the final draft, through the revision, through the publication with an authentic audience. So Writer's Workshop and process writing allows students to really grow in whatever direction that student is driven to grow in. And it really drives motivation for writing. And if you can make a child love writing, you can make a writer out of a child.
And Erin, you were talking earlier how adding SRSD to process writing helps struggling kids catch up to the stars of the classroom. Can you tell us about that?
When I encountered SRSD, what I saw was, this can help everybody be as great as my great ones are. That's the difference. Because every time with Writer's Workshop, there are going to be about 25 to 50% of the students who don't completely master the genre because it's not explicit how to master the genre. There's a lot of deductive reasoning from really quality mentor texts, but some kiddos are not in a space where they can do that. And we know that teachers' modeling is far more explicit with SRSD than that we see with our classroom observations of just Writing Workshop instruction. So SRSD as an intro for a genre would be a great foundational level that could then be carried on through the Writer's Workshop. That's how I see them blending together.
Sandy, what are your thoughts on why SRSD uses explicit instruction, as Erin suggests?
So the process is very similar. We want kids writing. That's great. But some kids need more explicit instruction. So what SRSD does for the students is gives them the explicitness they need to be successful using a process writing approach so that all students benefit, but those students who are really struggling actually understand it and move forward. And I guess my feeling is if kids need that explicit instruction and you don't do it, those kids are just going to struggle all through the year.
Erin also mentioned modeling. And I want to emphasize to our listeners that SRSD modeling is a unique part of the SRSD secret sauce. Sandy, tell us about SRSD's unique perspective on modeling.
Modeling is different because I am going to actually show you what I'm thinking when I'm trying to use this skill and go through in my head out loud, oh my goodness, I really don't have any details for this. I need to put it in there. I'm going to use my graphic organizer and I'm going to find some details. Okay, good. I've got a detail. That's great. Now I'm going to go on. The next step is modeling with them. So together, we're going to think about out loud, what do I think when I'm writing a paragraph? And I want to ask myself, do I have all the parts? So it's a process.
Erin, I'm going to give you the last word today. How do teachers benefit from process writing when combined with SRSD?
Writer's Workshop is really successful for teachers who have some experience in the classroom and can get a lot of moving parts going at the same time. And then people who are already doing Writer's Workshop should be able to see that there are students in their classroom who are not benefiting from the freedom that comes with the Writer's Workshop model. So SRSD would give them a lot more explicit instruction, and then they could graduate to that freedom space.
And how do you think they would best implement it?
What I would do is 4 to 6 weeks of introduction to each genre using SRSD so that every child had that full support to be successful, and then move on from that space exactly how I normally would with Writer's Workshop. So all my children can now write in this genre. Now let's let them explore once they have all the tools to be successful.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Sandy. If you would like to ask them more about integrating SRSD into your writing curriculum, email us at info@srsdonline.com. Right now, let's hear from Steve Graham on the value of process writing and the benefit of combining it with SRSD. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Karen R. Harris created SRSD over 30 years ago, and Steve Graham is also her husband. Steve is also known for his work and advisory roles with the National Writing Project and the What Works Clearinghouse. Take it away, Steve.
Process writing is one of these terms that's kind of ubiquitous in the sense that it means something to whoever has adopted it. But in a general way, process writing is about engaging in the processes involved in writing, which would include planning, drafting, evaluating, revising, editing, and sharing. Now, it's also become synonymous in many ways with Writer's Workshop. The one thing that's missing is that you don't have systematic and explicit instruction in terms of how to carry out the processes. And so the assumption is that, well, kids will learn how to do that kind of on their own. And our experience is that they don't, that most kids need some guidance in terms of doing this. And so when we've done studies where we've taken SRSD and we've integrated it into Writer's Workshop, we get a huge effect. More than you'd get with Writer's Workshop and more than you'd get with strategy instruction alone. And it's not surprising. You need a good context in which strategy instruction or SRSD is going to work.
Most of our research and much of other people's research has been done in classrooms using the writing process approach, and it has integrated well into the Writer's Workshop. It has meant changes in how Writer's Workshop is perceived, but 30 years of research shows us clearly and emphatically that the two put together have worked beautifully. To see a concerted developmental approach to writing instruction that had goals in K1, 2 through 12, and that also left room to flex to individual students' needs and strengths, to see a coherent, consistent approach across the genres and within genres, to see that and to think that SRSD could have a role to play in making that happen in schools, that is a dream.
In 2006, Karen and Steve conducted this study, which takes a look at Writing Workshop by itself, as well as in combination with SRSD. Let's look at the results. These charts compare the difference of Writer's Workshop by itself, noted here in red, and Writer's Workshop with SRSD, in blue. Here we're looking at the number of minutes of planning time. On the pretest, both sets of students are at 0.2 minutes of planning. After instruction, Writer's Workshop remained the same, whereas combined with SRSD, it went up to 5 minutes. But the most important aspect of learning is maintenance. And you see here that over time, students with just Writer's Workshop went down from the pretest, but when combined with SRSD, it leveled off at a healthy 4 minutes. Let's look at the number of words used in their essays. In the pretest and the posttest, the numbers are better when combined with SRSD, but in that all-important maintenance is where we get the real payoff. Same with story elements used. It's easy to see the gains and maintenance achieved when Writer's Workshop is combined with SRSD. Finally, we end each Mentor Series episode with an SRSD success story. This one is from SRSD researcher Debra McKeown.
I was working with a teacher who loved writing and had been a journalist and very involved in the writing movement. And she didn't really want to do this work. She didn't want to do this very structured SRSD kind of intervention. because she had a writing program that she developed herself, and it was working for her students. Her students loved to write. So she wasn't really interested in what I had, but she participated grudgingly, I think just to pick apart what was wrong with it. And it ended up that she saw that it really was effective for some of her students who hadn't quite gotten to the point where they loved writing as much as the rest of the class. And she saw real changes. And she can tell a great story about that. She believed in it so much, and her heart was changed so much that she now studies under me. She's one of my doc students now.
That'll do it for this episode of the SRSD Mentor Series, sponsored by SRSD Online and Writing to Learn. I'm your host, Randy Barth, and until next time, please share, like, and subscribe. And as always, send this link to as many friends who want to change students' lives forever.